Well, welcome to our webinar on social emotional learning in a digital world. So we know that our kids are online a lot, especially post-COVID. It's just an expectation. And so the way that they're communicating and interacting and things is affecting their social emotional well-being. So we wanted to take some time to address the ways that we can, teach our kids social emotional learning, but in digital ways. So we've put together a little bit of a presentation, but with lots of embedded resources. So we'll share this with you afterwards, so you can click on all the links and have all the templates and things of that nature that you can just go and use tomorrow in your classroom if you want to. So I'm Heather Schaefer, and I'm an instructional technology integration specialist with the Mohawk Regional Information Center.
And I'm Kristen Spinella. I'm also an instructional technology integration specialist.
So what is social emotional learning anyway? I mean, I know we all probably have like a general idea because it's been such a hot topic these past few years, but just to kind of wrap it up in a nice little bow, I'll read the definition, the technical definition to you. So social and emotional learning is the process in which people acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals. Feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. So we're going to dive into each of those areas and address each one of them individually. So here we have the SEL wheel, so to speak. And actually this picture is a hyperlink to the website, the Castle website. And they have lots of additional resources if you're looking for those. But what I love about the wheel is that it's actually interactive on their website. So you can click on each one of those areas to learn more information about it. So that's that. So we're going to jump right into the first area, which is self-awareness. And so we wanted to first make a connection between self-awareness and digital citizenship. So on the Castle website, self-awareness is defined as the abilities to understand one's own emotions, thoughts, and values, and how they influence behavior across contexts. So when we think about across contexts, since we're talking about being online, we added a word to our ISTE educator standard over there. So we're creating experiences for learners to make positive, socially responsible contributions and exhibit empathetic behavior online that builds relationships and communities. So you can see the integration between the social emotional learning definitions and the ISTE educator standards that we're expected to teach in our classrooms. So there's such a close integration that this was the perfect topic for today. So self-awareness, just to kind of give you like some ideas of what this might look like. We've outlined a couple bullets for you. So integrating personal and social identities, identifying personal, cultural, and linguistic assets, identifying one's emotions, demonstrating honesty and integrity, linking feelings, values, and thoughts, examining prejudices and biases, experiencing self-efficacy, having growth mindset, and developing interest and a sense of purpose. So we really want the students to be able to kind of be self-aware. That is like the baseline and the foundation for all of the other things that we're going to talk about today. So let's take a look at this even deeper. So when we're working with our students, these are just some kind of reflection questions that you might want to consider. You could even do them in the classroom as like a do now or like an exit ticket, or you could have like deeper conversations as a class about these things. But some things you might want to ask is, how do I feel when I use my technology? All right, I don't know if students really understand that their technology impacts the way that they're feeling as much as it really does. And as I went through some of the things that we're going to go through in a minute myself, I realized that I didn't even understand this until I really sat down and thought about it. So that's a really important thing. How can I navigate the pressures of social media? So we all know that social media, there's so much involved there, right? Not only are we interacting with our friends, but we've got like all of the pressures of like, do we want to show off our best life? Do we want to be our real selves? Do we want to, do we have to deal with cyber bullies? What about politics and how it's changing our culture and all of these other things like that? I could go on and on. So that's really important for them to consider from their own self-awareness perspective. How are they on social media, and how are they, impacting others, and what are they putting out there for themselves? And the third question is, how can I be authentic to myself online and offline? So it's really important to talk about both of those, even though, our webinar is kind of focused on the online stuff. But we want our students to not be fake online, right? They definitely, want to create that positive digital footprint, but they should, it should reflect who they are in real life. So we thought it would be great to incorporate a book for each one of these sections. So this book, The Technology Tale, talks about, you know what? I'm sorry. I just realized something. That's okay. I'm just going to keep talking, Kristen. I'm sorry.
You're good. You were on a roll. I was letting you go. You're good.
Kristen was supposed to do this section, but that's okay. I'll just keep talking. So making connections through children's literature. So the book, The Technology Tale, is a really great one because it has the kids, even at the youngest age, really look at their digital footprint and what makes a positive digital footprint and a negative digital footprint. And it really makes it applicable because you can see the tail on there is full of band-aids for negative things and gifts for positive things and stuff like that. So anyway, Kristen came up with this great activity on the next slide that will allow the students to really make that text to self connection by being able to apply this to their own lives. So they can think about their own experiences online and which ones were positive and which ones were negative. And I'll have you add anything you want, Kristen, since this was your activity.
Yeah, that's okay. So I really had students look at the way that they're interacting online. And then in this template, I had them go through and they put real life examples of how they were interacting with others online and what left a gift, which was something positive, what left a band-aid, which was something negative, and then what left a hole, which was them allowing information that's personal to them, such as their school or their address, that they've put out online that then allows others a little bit more deeper look into their personal lives. Specifically, we talked about when we go on vacation and we're posting pictures when we're there, that's allowing people that opportunity to then know that our house is sitting empty and there's nobody there. So we talked about how those types of behaviors are going to directly impact the world around our personal lives outside of technology. Oh, sorry about that. I need to find, okay.
All right.
I'm sorry, Heather, one other thing. So when you do get our slide deck, you will have access to all of these templates. Our hope with this is that you take the children's book that we've offered as kind of a jumping off point, and then these activities that we've created to really dig deeper and allow students to make connections with their own lives and their own personal experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the next section is somewhat related to the first section. So we had self-awareness to start, and now we're jumping into self-management. So, sometimes it's easy to get confused between the two of these things, but the Castle definition for self-management is the ability to manage one's emotions, thoughts, and behaviors effectively in different situations and to achieve goals and aspirations. So now we're not only being aware of these things, but we're actually managing these things. And that also connects very closely to the ISTE Educator Standard 2.3, which says create experiences for learners to make positive, socially responsible contributions and exhibit empathetic behavior online that builds relationships and community. So let's take a look at this. So under self-management, some examples would be managing your emotions. So, all of those strategies like taking a deep breath and all of the things that we talk about all of the time. Identifying and using stress management strategies, exhibiting self-discipline and self-motivation. So I think that specific point is important, that you have a balance of both of those things, because I think at least when I think of self-management, my mind always jumps to self-discipline. I don't always think about the self-motivation part, but that's also equally as important. Setting personal and collective goals, using planning and organizational skills. So think about the organizational skills piece. Like sometimes we address this outside of social emotional learning, but think about how much better you feel when you have a plan and when you have things organized and you're able to do those executive functioning skills. It has a big impact on your emotions too. Showing the courage to take initiative, and then demonstrating personal and collective agency as well. So some questions that go along with this is, how can I balance my time with and without technology? And we'll really dive into this with our example today. How can I practice healthy media habits, and what does a healthy media balance look like for me? And it's important to note that for me part, because it looks different for everybody, right? Everybody's needs are different. Everybody manages their time differently. So we just need to really analyze our own habits, and not the habits of everybody else, and then see what's going to work for me, and what's healthy and what's unhealthy. So the book we have to share with you on this topic is called Unplugged Ninja. And I wanted to add, by the way, Kristen curated a really cute library that we're going to share with you at the end, that has videos, YouTube videos that go along with all of these books. So even if you don't have access to the physical books, you can share them with your students through the videos. So this one was actually read by the author, which was kind of cool. But so Unplugged Ninja is having some hard times with some screen addictions and needing to deal with that, and how it's like affecting his emotions, and he's like reacting to his mom not so well, and so he really needs a digital detox to reset himself. And so that's what this book is all about. And so the activity that goes with it is the digital detox challenge. So if you decide to kind of go along with the character from this book and challenge your students to do a digital detox, this will help them to really analyze, what's making me feel panicked when I'm online? What's making me feel upset? What's making me feel irritable? And then coming up with strategies to kind of combat that. And so in the book, it talks about the 3 R's: reset, reconnect, and relax. So how can they do those things? What are some activities that they find fun offline? What do they like doing outside, and how do they relax? And then you could choose to do it for just a day and then reflect on it. Or if you wanted to take it a step further, you could kind of challenge yourself to do it more than one day, and then talk about, how was it either easier or harder on day one than it was on day two? And it could go either way, depending on the students, personalities and all these other factors too. I'm thinking, if I did it for one day, yeah, I can be strong and do it for another day. But like, if I did it for one day, it's so hard. I don't want to do it another day. Like I can see it going both ways, but anyways.
All right, so then we're going to start talking about responsible decision making. And Castle defines this as the abilities to make caring and constructive choices about personal behavior and social interactions across diverse situations. So we practice this all the time in the classroom. We tell our students, we want them to be responsible citizens. We want them to make the decisions that are best for themselves and everyone else around them. And ISTE kind of supports this with the standard 2.3. And you can see here, it says mentor students in safe, legal, and ethical practices with digital tools and the protection of intellectual rights and property. So not only do we want students making responsible decisions in the physical world, we also want them making responsible decisions in the digital world. So some ways that they can practice this is by demonstrating curiosity and open-mindedness. We I always encourage students to think outside the box. I want them to continue being curious. I want them to continue asking questions and being curious about the world that they live in. We also want to encourage them to learn how to make reasoned judgment after analyzing information, data, and facts. So I'm sure you're all familiar with, well, I read it on the internet, it must be true. And it's not always true. So we need to make sure that our students are aware of that. And we're teaching them how to make those decisions based on the information that they're gathering and what they already know. In addition, we want them to be able to identify solutions for personal and social problems. And this could be both in the physical environment and the digital world, but we need to teach them how are ways that we can respectfully solve problems that are occurring so that everyone feels safe and everyone feels included. We also want them to be able to anticipate and evaluate the consequences of one's actions. So I always tell everyone, you have a choice in your actions. What you don't have a choice in is the consequence of that action. So when you're making your choices, you need to think about what is the outcome of that choice, and based on that outcome, what is the best choice for you. We also want to ensure that they're recognizing critical thinking skills, both inside and outside of school. With technology, we tend to think that everything just comes easily and everything's readily accessible, but how can we critically think about problems that we're facing or things that are happening? We also want to reflect on our roles that we're promoting personal, family, and community well-being. So we are part of a community in the classroom. We might consider ourselves part of a family in the classroom, but how are we promoting that sense of belonging and helping everyone to feel included? In addition, we want to evaluate personal, interpersonal, community, and institutional impacts. So how are we impacting those around us? How are we impacting ourselves with our decisions? So here's some questions you can kind of use to guide those discussions with your students. And the first one is, how can I make responsible decisions online? So you can have those discussions around ways that students are already doing this, or maybe ways that they want to start trying to make more responsible decisions online. You can also have discussions around ways that you can make responsible choices when communicating online. So we know that our students are communicating with a lot of individuals online. So how are we making sure that the words that we're using are words that are helpful and not harmful? And then what are my responsibilities when practicing online or participating online rather? So I'm online. How does that impact me? How does that impact others? And what do I need to make sure I'm taking into consideration? So a great book to teach this is Webster's Email. And this is about a spider, and the spider sends out a funny picture of his sister via email. Well, this picture ends up traveling to 20 different people. So originally it only went to one person, but that person thought it was so funny that they shared it with another person, and that person happened to have somebody looking at it. So it's a great story of how quickly information can travel when it's digital and how many people it can reach. So it's a great way to talk about when we're talking online or we're posting information online, to think about the fact that it's not just reaching that person that we might be directly communicating with, that it could reach a much broader audience, that we want to make responsible decisions before we post. Another great book, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with these types of books, they're choose your own adventure books. But this is what Danny should do. And Danny is a little boy, and the students get to follow Danny throughout his day, and they get to make decisions on what Danny's going to do. So it starts off with Danny not getting the plate he wants for breakfast. So the students get to choose. Does he get upset and he throws a fit, or does he just accept it and use the plate that he was given? Well, you can imagine that students usually choose he gets upset, because they want to see what happens when Danny does not have control over his emotions. So it's really fun to read through and talk about, if they had chosen the other option, what would that have looked like? And how does that chain reaction follow Danny throughout his day? So it's a really fun way, because the students enjoy picking the wrong choice because they know it's the wrong choice, but it's a nice way to have those discussions about how does that choice impact then the rest of his day? Because as he makes those decisions, other things start to occur throughout the day, and he starts to miss out on some opportunities because of those choices that maybe weren't the best choices for him. So a great way to kind of practice this with your students is by creating your own choose your own adventure stories. So In this slide deck, you have some different templates. These templates here in Google Drawings are all planning documents. So choose your own adventure stories can get a little cumbersome depending on the number of choices that you provide for students. I always recommend starting with one of the smaller templates because it really allows students to get the feel of what a choose your own adventure story is, how those different choices then need to lead to a different path based on how the story is progressing. And then as they become more comfortable with it, you may choose to add additional choices. But these are a really fun way for students to look at the impact of choices and also practice those writing skills that you are probably already doing in your classroom. So those templates are all there in the slide deck that we'll be sharing out with you after this presentation. And I'm going to kick it back over to Heather for relationship skills.
Yeah, and I wanted to add one more thing about the choose your own adventure story. So Kristen made these templates and she did a fantastic job, and she already hyperlinked all of the slides together. So when you click on choice 1, it goes to choice 1, and choice 2 goes to choice 2. So all the footwork has been done for you. So all you have to do is plug in the information and you're good to go. So So jumping into relationship skills with digital citizenship. So the relationship skills are the abilities to establish and maintain healthy and supportive relationships and effectively navigate settings with diverse individuals and groups. And then the ISTE educator standard is again the same one as before. Create experiences for learners to make positive, socially responsible contributions and exhibit empathetic behavior online that builds relationships and community. So we're really going to focus in on that relationship piece right now. So this looks like communicating effectively, developing positive relationships, demonstrating cultural competency, practicing teamwork and collaborative problem solving, resolving conflicts constructively, resisting negative social pressure, showing leadership in groups, seeing or offering support when it's needed, and standing up for the rights of others. So you can see it's not simple, right? It has lots and lots of different facets that need to be considered. All sorts of relationships exist. Most of them are messy. And so we want to make sure that we're empowering our students with the skills they need to be able to navigate all of their relationships. And so some questions you might have your students consider is, how can I be kind online?
Sorry, Heather, I didn't mean to do that.
It's okay. And how does technology affect my friendships? I actually asked that question to students recently, and it was interesting just to see, because when we use technology, a lot of times, well, all of the time, you can't see the person's body language unless you're in like a call like this, but I'm thinking like texting and social media and stuff like that. You can't see their body language. You can't really see their emotions. They might throw some emojis in there, but who knows if that's really how they're feeling or if they're just covering things up, and things can just be taken out of context very easily. So it's really important that students know how to use the technology to enhance their friendships and not be a detriment to them. And then the other question is, what does healthy and rewarding relationship look like online and offline? And this is something that, personally, I was never taught as a child. So I've learned this as an adult, and it's been so important in my life. So I definitely want to make sure that that students know what that looks like and are given examples of both, healthy and unhealthy relationships so that they can relate it to their own experiences and their own relationships in their own lives. So a book that can help you with this is called The Fabulous Friend Machine. And this is about a chicken who goes online and starts friending all these people that doesn't really know, and then they end up being wolves and coming to try and eat him. So obviously this is geared towards the younger students, but this was another lesson that I just recently did with high schoolers as well, where people create fake profiles and they pretend to be somebody they're not. And when does that become, a dangerous situation? And when do those red flags go up and stuff like that? So very, very good book for younger kids. And then if you're dealing with older kids, this book, Bully, is another great one too. And this is interesting because some of the characters in here try to make good choices, but then they face challenges to making those good choices. So it's really about navigating the intricacies of relationships and trying to figure out the best solution for everybody. So one idea that we had that you could use to make some text to self connections is to create podcasts with your kids. So interview them, have them interview each other with these 3 questions. I will be kind online by. I will respond to online meanness or cyberbullying by. Reflecting on how I currently connect with my friends online and off, I want to strive for relationships that look like this. And just have them talk through it in like that interview type style and record themselves doing it. And then what you can do to take it to the next step is you can actually create use this template that you see on the screen here to create like a mock Spotify playlist. And so this can be done one of 2 ways. If you want to keep it completely digital, what you can do is you can, where the little icons for the songs are, you can put the actual recordings in there. So if you upload like a video file to like Google Drive, you can actually put it in there really tiny so that when they click on it, they can listen to it. But if you're more of like a print person and you want to print this and hang it in the hallway, another option would be to create QR codes that go to each of your podcasts and then just put the QR codes there so people can scan them with their devices and listen that way. So could be used multiple different ways.
All right, and that brings us to our final topic, which is social awareness. So Castle defines social awareness as the abilities to understand the perspectives of others and empathize with others, including those from diverse backgrounds, cultures, and contexts. So really up until this point, we've kind of talked about how students are making choices, being self-aware. It's really been about them as an individual. So this kind of takes that and flips it. And now it's about recognizing others and how they might be feeling. So that supports the ISTE standard 2.3 with establishing a learning culture that promotes curiosity and critical examination of online resources and fosters digital literacy and media fluency. So let's take a deeper look at this. Some different aspects that you may want to take into consideration when you're talking to your students about their social awareness is taking others' perspectives. This can be really challenging for people to really think about what the other person might be feeling, and especially if it's different than how you perceive the situation. So really diving deep into thinking about how someone else might be taking into consideration the situation and having those conversations. Also getting to recognize the strengths in others. In the classroom, it's kind of easy to pinpoint out the weak spots in other students. My daughter's in 1st grade and she's already noticing, students that might be struggling in her class. And rather than encourage that, I'm trying to get her to understand that everyone has different strengths. And instead of looking at the weaknesses, we need to be thinking about what strengths those students are bringing into our classroom and really help give those students those opportunities to showcase those strengths. We also want to practice demonstrating empathy and compassion for others and showing concern for the feeling of others. So it's easy to, in the busyness of our days to kind of push off how other people might be feeling, but really taking that time to slow down and think about how are we being compassionate about others and showing concern for their feelings. We also want to understand and express our gratitude. So even just something as simple as a thank you can go a long way for someone. Identifying diverse social norms and including unjust ones, recognizing situational demands and opportunities, and understanding the influences of organizations and systems on behavior. So just being aware of all of that kind of ties in. And of course, it's going to have to be age appropriate depending on the students that you teach. But as I said, even as young as kindergarten, 1st grade, we can start having these conversations with our students in a way that's appropriate for them to understand. But it really sets that groundwork and that foundation that we can then build on as they get older. And when those situations that they're experiencing become more complex, they already have a good background knowledge and a good toolbox, if you will, of strategies that they can use. So some questions you can use to kind of spur that conversation around students is, how do I respond to online meanness? How can I respond to digital drama when I see it happen? And what contributes to the creation of welcoming online environments? So in these, I feel like we've almost gone from being proactive with the self-awareness and all of that we just talked about to now we're being reactive. So this happened. How do I react to it? And how can I kind of take a negative situation and turn it into a positive one? So we all know that no matter how hard we try, students are going to run into problems online. There's going to be something that happens. So let's not pretend that it's not going to happen. Let's give them the skills of what they can do when it does happen so that they're prepared. Because for a lot of us, we didn't grow up with this technology. So the world that the students are living in is very different than where we were living. And we can't expect them to learn to navigate it on their own, just like we don't expect them to learn to navigate the physical world. So giving them those skills that will help them to navigate those tough situations. And a great children's literature book to do this is Troll Stinks. And I'm sure many of us are familiar with the Three Goats and the Billy Goat Gruff. I'm sorry. What is it? What is it, Heather? Three Billy Goat. The name is escaping me now. But the three goats that go over the bridge and then there's a troll. The name is escaping me, but you know what I mean. But we're all familiar with that. That's kind of twist on that story. Did somebody put it in the chat? My brain is not working today. And I can't see the chat. So this is not working, but it's okay.
Three Billy Goats Gruff. So
thank you to whoever said that. I appreciate it. So it's a twist on that story. So these two goats find a phone that was lost, and they send a mean message to the troll because they think the troll is this mean troll that lives under the bridge. Well, they're in for a surprise when they actually get to meet the troll in person, because the troll is this little cute animal and his feelings are really hurt. So I like this because students already have a context of the story and where it's coming from, but it shows them that our perception of others might not necessarily be what we think it to be. So it's a great story to really start those discussions. Then from there, we've created this Stop Online Meanness template. Now it shows up. Okay, thank you, Megan. All right, so we've created this template for you that uses the acronym STOP. And the STOP acronym, if I can get it to show up, I have it here somewhere. Maybe. Oh, goodness. There we go. Okay. Even my technology is saying it's a long day. Okay, so the acronym STOP stands for Step Away, Tell a Trusted Adult, OK Sites Only. And I don't know why that last one didn't, but this is pause and reflect, pause and think. So what we're asking students to do is to reflect on these questions. So step away. Why do you think stop using your device and step away? So in this template, they will then enter a text box that answers that question. Why do you think it's a good idea to stop using your device and walk away when a situation becomes mean or maybe negative? Why do you think it's a good idea to tell someone if you're scared or angry? So these are great reflection questions for students to start thinking about how they can handle online meanness, but it also allows students to have an acronym that they can use when they encounter those situations. So we talked about giving them those skills. This is one of those skills because they can say to themselves, stop, and then go through the steps in their mind when they encounter that situation. All right, I'm going to send it back over to Heather.
Yeah, so can you click on the link for me?
Yeah.
So we wanted to give you access to some resources from Common Sense Education, and these were actually shared last year during Digital Citizenship Week, but we've made copies of them, so if they ever do disappear, you've still got them. So I like that they gave 3 different documents that were broken down by grade level. So a lot of the books that we've shared have been very elementary, but if you're looking for things for older students, you can definitely go to the document that has like middle school or high school ideas. And similarly to what we've done today, it breaks it down into those 5 different areas, and it gives you lesson plans and activity ideas from their website that align with each one of them. So wonderful, wonderful resource to explore.
All right. And our final resource that we want to leave you with is this children's book library that we have kind of composed for you. So this has a lot of the story titles that we just discussed, along with the resources that went along with them, but it also has some new ones. And what we have done for each of these stories is when you click on it, you will be brought to a YouTube video of a read aloud of that story and a summary of the story. So I used a lot of these stories with fourth graders last year when we talked about digital citizenship. Now, the library did not have a lot of these books available, and we all know that teachers spend a lot of money as it is on the resources for their classroom. So having access to just a digital copy of this book, I would play it at the beginning, I would stop it throughout, and then it would give me a great way to have those conversations around the stories and still incorporate a lot of what we're talking about without having to have that physical book. And this is a great way for you as well, if you're interested in finding out more about a certain story, to take a look at it before you maybe go out and purchase it or borrow it from your local library. So this is all here. It's easy to click around, and you can get a great overview of a lot of these different stories, and they all focus around SEL and digital citizenship. So we're just hoping to provide you with some additional resources that will kind of support your discussions in your classrooms. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us. You do have our emails on the screen. So if you do have any questions, or you need support getting started, or you need some ideas, please feel free to reach out. Heather and I love doing this. We're happy to help. So yeah, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. And if you do have any questions, we do have a little bit of time before we wrap up. Feel free to unmute.
This is fantastic, ladies. I am
Thank
super
you.
impressed with this. My takeaways, like I can walk right into a classroom with this and just go ahead. And I wasn't sure what I was getting myself into, but I know I wanted more SEL. The books you said, like, what did Danny do? Is it geared towards third, fourth grade?
It really could be anybody elementary, I would say. So Danny is a little boy. I can't remember how old he is, but it's all about his day. So it's, an interaction with his sibling, and then an interaction with his parents, and an interaction with his friends. So it really could be anybody in that elementary level, I would say, would be appropriate for that book.
Okay, that I can see using a lot. And we can share this with other
Please
teachers that we
do.
work with. Okay.
Yes,
Beautiful.
absolutely. And one thing with what would Danny do when we did it in the classroom, I had myself and then the teacher that I was teaching with. So we would read the story, and then the students would pick which side of the room they wanted to go to based on that decision. And then we would keep reading the story from there, and then they would make their next choice. So it was kind of fun for them to be able to get up and move around. And if they decided they wanted to go back to, making the right decisions, they could. So that was a fun way to handle it too.
With two teachers, because I co-teach, being an ENL teacher. Fantastic way to do
Yeah.
that. Sweet. And I can go to request that because I got a list for our library to order, but we can get it out of the public library.
Yes, I did see it
Okay.
listed on some of the local libraries
Okay.
when you search their catalogs. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Heather, are you able to see the chat? I don't know why mine isn't showing up.
Yes, and I just put the link to the presentation in the chat, but we'll also email it out afterwards to everyone who registered.
And we also did record this, so we'll send out the recording as well in case you're interested in reviewing it or you missed any parts of it.
Yeah. Also, I want to put a little plug in. Model Schools is actually starting a new service around instructional technology coaching. So if you are in a school district that doesn't have a Model Schools coordinator that comes regularly as an FTE, you might want to take advantage of that and have one of us come in and work with you. We could work on digital citizenship and SEL, or we could work on anything really technology related. And so I'll make sure to include that flyer in the email that we send out as well.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. And it's wonderful to hear that these resources are helpful. And like we said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, or if you're looking for additional resources, then you don't have the time necessarily to curate them yourselves, feel free to reach out, and Heather and I are happy to just provide you with extra support.